Where are we headed in 2015? According to a recent poll conducted by the AP, apparently 48% of Americans believe that 2015 will be a better year than 2014 was, while only 11% think it's going to be worse. Is this vague optimism realistic? Does it take into account the events unfolding around the world right now? Let's take a look at our current trajectory. The war in Ukraine isn't over. Relations between the US and Russia are more tense than they've been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The stakes are getting higher in each round. Kiev has put their so-called anti-terrorist operations in eastern Ukraine mostly on hold for the winter, though shelling has continued, and they've engaged the separatists in peace talks. But many believe that this is just a ploy to give them time to regroup and rearm, with some help from Washington. These aren't just empty suspicions. In December, the Ukrainian government announced their intention to double the military budget and conscript 40,000 new soldiers for an offensive against the east. Also, the US government is moving to supply the Ukrainian government with more weapons and training over the next year. When such an offensive would kick off is uncertain, but we'll be watching events in the region closely as spring approaches. One of the most important signals heading into 2015 was the Ukrainian government's decision to annul their non-aligned status with NATO. This doesn't mean that NATO membership would be granted right away, but it is a sign that they intend to make a bid. Why is this dangerous? Because the NATO agreement compels each of its members to defend all other members militarily if attacked. And we saw how Washington's Muppets in Kiev claimed that they were being invaded by Russia over and over throughout 2014. No evidence was provided or demanded. The US government and their lapdogs in the media were perfectly happy to take these claims at face value and repeat them constantly as if they were established facts. If Ukraine becomes a NATO member, these claims could trigger military deployments. Considering the fact that this is a scenario that NATO is actively preparing for, this has to be taken seriously. We can't talk about the showdown with Russia without looking at the dramatic drop in oil prices that began in 2014. Obviously, there are conflicting narratives on this topic, but according to The Guardian and Salon, in September of 2014, John Kerry instructed the Saudis to raise production and to cut its crude price. Now, the Saudis have indicated that they have no intention of slowing down oil production anytime soon. But the elephant in the room here is U.S. oil production from fracking, which has been dramatically ratcheted up as well. This move might seem absurd since it's going to hurt U.S. oil producers, but it's clearly going to hurt Washington's key opponents, namely Iran, Venezuela, and Russia, far more, since these economies are far less diversified. Drop in oil prices has already had a massive impact on the value of the ruble, and combined with the sanctions, there's a good chance that the Russian economic situation could degrade even more in the coming year. The drop in the ruble has also interfered with Russia's efforts to establish trade agreements which bypass the dollar. With the ruble going through bouts of hyperinflation, even their closest allies are hesitant to accept payments in rubles. You'll hear people like CFR member Ian Bremmer describe Russia as a dangerous, wounded beast that may do something unpredictable. It's like a teenager poking a bear with a sharp stick and then warning that the bear might bite. Yes, the bear might bite, so stop poking it. The conflict in Syria isn't going away. In fact, 2014 was the most deadly year on record with some 76,000 people killed. U.S. airstrikes will continue in 2015, but they won't destroy ISIS or even weaken it significantly.
Well, first of all, because they're such a insignificant amount that it's not an air campaign, Greg. People have got to understand these are just hitting 3 targets a day, maybe 5. We just are not using air power.
Though ISIS established its position with the help of U.S. arms and funding, at this point they seem to have procured their own revenue streams through taxation and oil sales. In the long run, this makes them a liability. But in the short term, ISIS is doing most of Washington's dirty work by weakening Assad. The Syrian government will most likely continue to slowly weaken throughout 2015. We could, however, see some surprises that completely alter the playing field. For example, ISIS might make good on their threats to attack targets in the West. Remember, the group did get a hold of 88 pounds of uranium in Iraq this past summer. In December of 2014, ISIS announced that not only have they built dirty bombs with this material, but that they have already smuggled them into Europe. Now, dirty bombs aren't all that deadly, but people don't need to be in any real danger in order to panic. An event like this would put a full-fledged invasion of Syria on the table, and it would obviously be used to justify an even greater expansion of surveillance and police powers. Watch the covert origins of ISIS for more information on this topic. The Ebola story has obviously dropped off the mainstream radar, but it didn't go away in the real world. The chart is still moving in the same direction, up. Sierra Leone has dramatically escalated their containment effort, but according to the Red Cross, the number of cases has in fact spiked in recent weeks, and the situation is far from being under control. The virus is now mutating as fast or faster than a seasonal flu. So every day that it remains active in West Africa increases the chances of a game-changing adaptation. Until Ebola is completely eradicated, it remains a dangerous wildcard heading into 2015. Watch Ebola, Fear, Lies, and the Evidence for more information on this topic. Heading into 2015, race relations in the US are a gas can waiting for a match. You can't predict the kinds of events that act as sparks, but we've seen from 2014 that the threshold for outrage and violence is getting lower. This trend isn't likely to reverse in the coming year. The danger on this front heading into 2015 isn't so much physical, but rather that it could deepen divisions and make it totally impossible to unify the people against their common enemy. Who benefits from that scenario? In the realm of politics, as a lame duck president, Obama himself is a wild card. 2015 presents a window of opportunity to push through unpopular policies before the media starts hyping the 2016 elections. The fact that Obama has nothing to lose in 2015 is likely to factor in on issues like the TPP, which Obama says he intends to support in spite of resistance from the left. He also supports the TTIP, which is slated for a renewed push in 2015 as well. These agreements contain provisions which would hand even more power to multinational corporations and implement SOPA and CISPA through backdoor channels. The only reason we know anything about these treaties is from leaked drafts. The negotiations are being conducted in secret, and the final versions could end up being much worse. The future isn't set in stone, at least until the concrete dries. Every choice we make influences the world around us, sometimes in ways we couldn't even begin to imagine. So let's go into 2015 with our eyes open and make the best of what comes. If this message resonates with you, spread it. If you want more, subscribe to Storm Clouds Gathering on YouTube or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. If you have a topic request, post it in the comments. And for the full transcript and sources, visit our website at stormcloudsgathering.com.